Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Scares That Shaped Us podcast about horror writers and the stories that made them. I'm your host, Matthew Jackson, and congratulations to all of our new Bram Stoker Award winners and nominees. The Stoker Awards were this past weekend. I was not there, though maybe I will be in the future. But it was great to watch online and see all of the winners coming in, including several friends of this show. Adam Caesar took home his second Stoker Award for Superior Achievement in a Young Adult Novel for Clown in a Cornfield 3, The Church of Friendo. Our friend Sophia Ajram took home the Superior Achievement in Long Fiction for his amazing novella Coup de Grace. And Gwendolyn Keist, who was just here a couple of weeks ago, won the Stoker Award for Best Novel for The Haunting of Velkwood. And that makes, I think, 4 Stokers for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn's up there. They're going to retire Gwendolyn's jersey into the rafters one day at StokerCon. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to a lot of other cool people. Emily Hughes won Superior Achievement for Long Nonfiction. That was great to see. Emily rules. Monica Kim won Superior Achievement in a first novel for The Eyes Are the Best Part, which is an amazing book if you haven't had a chance to read that. And it was just a very cool night. It was very cool to see everybody taking home awards, getting to say thank you live streamed, which was fantastic. Congratulations to everybody. Hope that some of you who haven't been on this show yet will be on the show soon. But this week, I'm going to go ahead and say it, we have a future Bram Stoker Award winner on the show. Valentina Rojas is here. We're going to talk to Valentina about her debut novella, A Feast of Putrid Delights, and we're going to talk about the 2018 remake of Suspiria, directed by Luca Guadagnino and starring Dakota Johnson and Tilda Swinton. It's a lot of fun, and I'm not going to waste any more time. All I will say is, if you saw the list of Stoker winners, buy those books. They're amazing. And now, let's head over to our interview with the wonderful Valentina Rojas. Joining us this week on The Scares That Shaped Us is a writer, editor, and streamer whose work can be found in Ghoulish Tales, Coffin Bell Journal, and Mouthfeel Fiction. Her debut novella, A Feast of Putrid Delights, is available now from Ghoulish Books. Valentina Rojas, welcome to the show.
Great job on the pronunciation, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm in Texas, so I get a little of it, you know.
Yeah, you're in Austin, right?
I am in Austin, and grew up knowing how to pronounce words like Rojas, at least. I can't vouch for the whole of the Spanish language, but I have a few tricks up my sleeve. Anyway, it's great to have you here. I found out about you because I know Max Booth from Ghoulish quite well.
Love Max.
And Max was pushing Feast of Putrid Delights really hard back in like earlier this year, and I picked it up and read it and went, damn, this is some stone cold shit right here. Like, it is, what, 75 pages or something like that of
80, 75, something like that. Yeah, it's a short one.
But yeah, it's all killer, no filler. For those who still don't know about the book or haven't had the chance to read it yet, could you give them a little taste of what Feast of Putrid Delights is?
Of course, I will tell you a little bit about the plot without and keeping it very brief because it is short and it's more of a descent to madness, right? So I don't really want to give anything away. But essentially, Feast follows Antonia, a young chef, as she struggles with an extremely chronic bout of insomnia, which leads her to try an experimental street drug named Cloud. And from then on, we follow her descent into madness. It's an exploration of culinary horror. It's an exploration of intimacy, imposter syndrome, and perfection.
Yeah, it does a thing, and it does it so concisely too, that is so difficult to nail in horror writing. Like it's something that in my own fiction, like I don't really attempt because I don't think I have the skill for it, which is that slow descent into madness.
Mhm.
And as you follow Antonia through this really crazy uh evolution that she undergoes, you really get the sense of someone very slowly coming untethered and discovering new and awful things about what they're going through. And it feels so natural that I'm wondering, when you set out to write this, were you just sort of letting her wander wherever she wandered? Did you plot this out very carefully? How did you do it?
It was incredibly long before it was a novella, actually. It was longer than it turned out to be in the end. And I took a lot of things out because I thought it would make it more interesting to follow her descent into madness. There's a part where she says, I'm already editing what I want you to know, right? And the way that she came to me was somebody who didn't really like me very much and didn't want to tell me a lot of things. And I was in a dark place when I wrote it at first. I was actually in New York City and I was struggling with my own uh, feelings of eating disorders and feelings of intimacy and all of this stuff that I just channeled into Antonia. And I'm usually not a fan of telling people like this story is about grief or this story is about, love or cannibalism as a metaphor for love, et cetera, et cetera. I like to really find out what readers think is wrong with me I think horror reveals so much about the person without us knowing what that is. We want to spin our own narrative of like, this is what this book is about, and maybe to the reader it's something completely different. I like to play this with directors too, and I'm excited to go over this with the movie that we're about to talk about. But I've done it with every horror movie that I've watched. It's like, was Ari Aster's, what haunts him? Oh, family. What haunts Edgar Wright? Oh, chores, right? You can get as fun with it as you want to, or you could delve really deep and really ask yourself what haunts this person. But it was a weird, wild ride, and it took me to an interesting place for sure.
And it's made it's called the Feast of Putrid Delights, and it is
Yes.
culinary horror. And you just mentioned being in New York City as this story came to you. What is your experience with the world of restaurants and the culinary industry?
I was a hostess, but my main food service job was a barista. And I got to prepare very tiny things, but nowhere near the quality of Antonia's level. I think chefs are pirates, and I think their world has always been inspiring to me. My father worked in restaurants; he worked in everything back in the day, and I was always inspired by people like Anthony Bourdain, who really spoke about what happens behind the kitchen, what happens with the people who don't take holidays, who work on Christmas and New Year's Eve and Thanksgiving and are really in their own world, and at the same time exhibiting this veneer of polish when it comes to you and your table, right? Uh, so I've always been fascinated with food. I think Bourdain is actually, his writing inspired me a lot. Even before other horror writers, it was Bourdain, and I take this as a tribute to him, and I think that he would hate that and love it. So,
Yeah, I will say, if anyone listening out there has not read Kitchen Confidential, the book that kind
so
of
good.
launched Anthony Bourdain as a force beyond just being a chef,
Yeah.
um, you should absolutely read it. Like it's an incredible memoir. It's also just an incredible piece of prose. Like
Mhm.
he had that attitude. That attitude was not a thing that he like put on for the TV show. It was there in the
No.
words from
Yeah.
very early on. Um, I noticed something today that I want to make sure to ask you about, because I was looking at your socials, and you have an anthology that you co-edited coming out here pretty soon, right?
I do. I do. It's with Michael Tishy. It's
Okay.
coming out.
Uh,
It's already out.
oh, it's already out. Okay. I
Yes.
didn't know about this. I just saw it pop up on the feed today, and I went, "Oh shit." And it has such a great hook. If you wouldn't mind letting
Yeah.
letting our listeners know like what the inspiration for the anthology was.
So the anthology is In the Eyes of the Hungry, and it is actually inspired by Steinbeck's short story on the werewolf, which was never published. And like a lot of writers, he wrote things that he wasn't really that proud of, and then he wrote other things that never went unpublished. And this story was one of them. So we were inspired to tackle Americana and the woes of the world that we're living in through a lens of monster stories. And so we made a call for this anthology to say, give us your Steinbeck inspired short stories and take us on that very monster filled world of seeing the problems in our world today through the lens of a Steinbeck sort of prose. And it was a quite a feat to edit this. Michael Tichy, who is one of my favorite writer friends and does exceptionally good writing. It inspires me every day. We work together on it, and let me tell you, anthologies are no joke. They are tough. We received a lot of submissions. They were super great, and yeah, we're really proud of this one. I do believe that he was also contacted by one of the Steinbeck associations in New York that was really looking at this as something they wanted to spotlight. So yeah, it was cool.
That's rad. So it's out now. What's the press?
It's Casting Ink Press.
Okay. So everyone look out for that. Go find it. I'm going to go find it because I just found out about it today. I will put a link to it in the show notes so everyone can go buy this thing.
Thank you. I forgot about that.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, because I find this fascinating as someone who like I have a podcast, but that's like as comfortable as I am letting people into my little corner of stuff right now. You do something very interesting on Twitch where you basically host a co-working stream. You invite people to come on and just kind of hang out with you while you work.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of warm thing to do for other people online. I can't imagine doing it because I like mutter weird things to myself while I'm writing, so I don't know that I could handle it. But I'm curious as a creative person, what it has given you to kind of host those spaces for people over time.
Sure. Well, I think the muttering, first of all, would be quite a catch. So you might want to reconsider that. I think it would be interesting. People would definitely take it as something that Matthew does and make some emoji about it or something. But no, in my day job, I work in game development. I work in video games, and I've always been in the world of streaming. It's something that I have helped manage or that I'm just really comfortable with. Not personally, that took a really long time. But one of the reasons I wanted to do it is that I wasn't really called to stream video games. I considered that actually pretty personal. And I know what you're thinking, writing is very personal, but it's also a good space to say, okay, we're here, we're going to get this done. And we all have ADHD, we all have a lot of things on our minds. So let's just hunker down and write for 45 minutes or work on something for 60 minutes. So I kind of do a little bit of work, a little bit of writing, and we have soundtracks in the background and we just have timers and we go. And it's really fun to just hear other people's tasks. Sometimes they're not even writing related at all. But we all share that space together.
Yeah, it's very nice. I do wonder how much like there is this podcast has a modest audience that is growing, and I appreciate every listener we have. I don't know how much of an appetite there is really for people to hear me going, "Damn it, Jackson, get your head in the game," while I'm trying to write a movie review or something, whatever else I'm working on. But it's a nice thought, and I appreciate the encouragement.
Yeah.
But now we're going to talk about this. This was really interesting when the email came through about what you wanted to discuss on the show, because the title is something where it's on that list of stuff where I was like, this is going to come up eventually. Someone was going to pick this. So we're going to talk about Suspiria, but We're not talking about the 1977 version of
Nope.
Suspiria directed by Dario Argento. We are talking about the 2018 version of Suspiria directed by Luca Guadagnino, which is much more divisive among horror fandom and film fandom in general. I think at this point, the Argento film is widely revered as a masterpiece of Italian horror. This film is, we were talking before we hit record, like this is creeping into true cult classic territory, in the sense that it has a small but very proud merry band of devoted sicko fans like Valentina and I am also a fan of this movie, and I rewatched it before we recorded this just to make sure. So
You're still a fan.
I'm still a fan. Yeah,
That's great.
it rips. It absolutely, it's wonderful. I'm a fan of Luca's work in general.
Me too. Bones and
I
All was also one of the ones that I wanted to talk to you about because it's so good.
Bones and All is incredible. I loved. I mean, Challengers just came out last year. I love Challengers. Um, but in terms of Suspiria, I wanted to ask you what you remember about your first experience with this movie.
Oh yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was working in McKinney, Texas. It's a little north of Dallas, and there is a delicious H Mart and Mitsuya marketplace there for those of you guys in the area that has the most delicious ramen. My friends and I were meeting up there, and then we were going to catch a movie. We had missed the first showing, but we showed up a little bit early to Suspiria, and I said, "Oh, this is like the 1977 film." I went in blind. I'm so happy I did. I was stunned from start to finish. I actually watched it that day, thought about it all night, took my then partner to go see it the next day, and then on the Saturday, I went to another theater and I saw it. So I saw it 3 times in 1 week because it left such an impact on me. The music alone is something that I consistently go back to when I'm writing anything, because it is Tom York doing some of his creepiest work. And yeah, it's incredible. It's really it's one of my favorite films of all time. I can't say any more good things about it.
Yeah, I stupidly did not see this in theaters when it was
Oh,
out. I've never seen it on the big screen, but because Amazon, financed a lot of it,
yeah.
it was on Amazon Prime. So I saw it in 2019, like a few months after it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it was one of those things where I kind of wrote it off as like, because I love Dario Argento's Suspiria. It was one of
Mm-hmm.
the first of that kind of crop of horror films that I saw back in when I was like 18 or something, and loved it. So I was very protective and like, why are you
Yeah.
remaking Suspiria? Blah 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 blah.
Sure.
And then one night I'm sitting at home, I'm looking for a horror movie to watch. I open Prime Video and it's there, and I'm just like, oh, what the hell? Okay. Hit play, and 2.5 hours later, I'm sitting there with my jaw on the floor
Mm-hmm.
because it is such a departure from what Argento
So different.
and Dario Nicolodi did in '77. It keeps the basic mythology and the same main character in name only, really, and then just kind of takes everything else and
Mhm.
builds its own really really elaborate framework around it. And we are going to talk spoilers in this space for everybody who
Yes, we have to.
hasn't seen it. So if you have not seen the 2018 version of Suspiria, it is still out there on Amazon Prime. You can go watch it. It's great. Come back and see us when you're done. I um I don't think it really hit me until my rewatch of it last night how many layers there are to this thing,
So
because
many layers.
yeah, it's like, so it's set in Berlin in 1977, which obviously was a divided city at that point, and
Yes.
it incorporates all of the political upheaval in Berlin of that era.
Mhm.
which is not really present in Argento's version very much. It incorporates modernist dance in a big way. It incorporates uh, the aftermath of the Holocaust and the period of national reflection and guilt hanging
Mhm.
over Germany at that time because of the Holocaust and everything the Nazis did. And it's got witches. Like
Yes.
what more could you want?
Yeah.
Um so what there, oh god, there are just so many different angles we could approach this.
It's so good. Let's go with should we go with layer one with the Mennonite opening? I feel like that.
Yeah, it's that is a very interesting starting place for this, is that Susie Banyan, Dakota Johnson's character,
Uh-huh.
was raised in a very strict Mennonite sect, which
Hmm.
I grew up in Texas. There were Mennonites always around, uh, and I knew Mennonites, and it is a very interesting way of life. It is a very it's a very throwback way of life, but it's also very clear early on, without almost without words. That's the other thing. Is like the opening of the film is almost silent, but it's very clear that Susie, the girl who is going to go to this prestigious dance academy in Berlin, and her mother do not get along, to the point that
No.
even
And
later in
she
the
knows
film,
that.
yeah, she knows. And later in the film, there's a sequence where her mother says that
I am the
Susie is,
sin
yeah,
that was smeared
Susie's,
onto the world.
yes, that is what she thinks of her daughter Susie, who is interested in art and culture beyond her Mennonite community. That she is a sin that her mother birthed and smeared on the face of the world.
I love that line.
And it introduces this the I would say the strongest theme in the film, which is motherhood. Um, because Susie goes to this place and clearly worships these women who run this, in particular Madame Blanc, who played by Tilda Swinton, who is kind of the lead choreographer and director of this company. She is looking for a strong maternal figure, and of course, what she doesn't know. And I think that this is the thing that hooked me when I first watched it, is Argento built up this mythology of like there are these witches, and one of them it lives in a it's a coven of witches, and one of them is leading this group at this dance studio in Berlin. Uh, and you don't really get much more until the end of that movie. In Luca's movie, it's almost like in the first act you find out like, oh, this every woman who runs this dance studio is part of a coven of witches, and they're looking for the right girl to do some kind of ritual on. And I just love how in your face it is right away that that's what's going on.
Yes. I think also when it comes to the layers, immediately off the bat, you understand that these are witches, very powerful people, right? It's hinted at that they have very arcane and long histories. At the same time, they just run a dance studio. You know what I mean? Like they run a dance studio, and they're also extremely present in the political atmosphere that is surrounding Berlin in 1968, 1970. It is so interesting how they don't consider those worlds separate. They are one and the same. And immediately when we go to the Mennonite farm where the mother is sick and dying, you have this beautiful aesthetic montage of the Mennonite life, right? It's all simple, it's removed from technology, it's very idealistic in some way. And then the director just cuts to Berlin, the subway, pamphlets, euros, it's dirty, it's rainy, it's steeped in a world that cannot be divided from the events that are going on around it. It's not isolated the way the Mennonites are. And you meet Susie and you think that she's isolated, but she's also yearning. She's yearning for this motherhood, this sisterhood, this family that she's never had. And right off the bat, I was so intrigued by the film's ability to confront and say, this is all one thing. This is political, magical. Witches are political, right? The we're not going to shy away from what was happening in Berlin at that time, and we're going to talk about it like these are real people. These are real witches that have to coexist with the real world. It's utterly fascinating.
To the point that there is political graffiti on a wall that is literally across the street
Yeah.
from the building, and you see it
Uh-huh.
in numerous shots. It's there. Yeah, I love that point. It's such a great because and it again it builds on the thing that Argento introduced, which I don't like. He really didn't get very deep into this mythology of the three mothers until Inferno, which is the sort of loose sequel to Suspiria, which is also a great film. But the idea is there are these three mothers, um, Mater Tenebrarum, Mater Lacrimarum, and Mater Suspiriorum, who are supposedly control the world with their arcane magic. And with these witches who, like you said, they're very they seem very ordinary, most of them. They're a lot
Yeah.
of them are just old ladies sitting at a kitchen table making tea and gossiping and
Eating
talking.
muesli.
Yeah, yeah, and talking and listening to the radio and just kind of going about their day. Um, and it's what you slowly realize, like very early on, you hear them taking a vote for leadership of the coven, and Blanc is clearly pushing because she wants to be the leader, but this for a while very mysterious figure named Mother Marcos, who is the main witch in the original Suspiria, she's the other candidate, and they vote to maintain the status quo. But it's clear that not only is there like a sort of an ideological rift forming within the coven, but it's also clear that like the old structures of power that they're clinging to aren't really working for them anymore.
Yeah.
Like they've been trying things. There's a girl named Patricia, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, who is sort of on to their game, and they talk about, well, Patricia wasn't right for this. Patricia couldn't handle this, and we need to do something else. And Blanc is pushing for her thing, and Marcos is pushing for her thing, and it adds so much depth to everything that comes after, because that's not we don't have to keep comparing it to the original film, but the original film isn't interested in that really. It's
Mm-mm.
and
Yeah.
to add this whole other layer, the idea that Susie is looking for motherhood and sisterhood, and the people that are supposed to be her mothers and sisters are fighting with each other over how best to do that, is so wonderful to me.
Yeah. And I just thought of it. So we're talking about like the way they've always done things, right? Which we kind of assume because they do it in such an ordinary way. They're all in the kitchen and you hear that they have voted for Marcos or they abstained or they voted for Blanc. And it's just very run of the mill. You know, we do this every year. Like, okay, let's just vote. And compare that or fast forward to when the consequences of that happen and they know who Susie is and the violence that erupts. I think that is where the layers come in because it's very much like the political world that is happening, either now or back then. They've always done this. These institutions have always been there. And then all of a sudden, things are not happening like we want them to, right? Or things are happening like in such a different way than the institutions and the traditions led them to believe. And I think I don't know if I mentioned this, but I actually did grow up in Texas as well. I grew up in Dallas, Texas.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And yeah, and I also lived in Frankfurt and Berlin for a time. So right away when I saw the landscape of Berlin and I heard the German, it was just something that kind of gave me nostalgia for this time that was for me very difficult. So I think there are so many biased ways why this is my favorite film, but all that came together on like my second viewing of this. And when I was in grad school, I studied international relations, and we had a article on Bader Meinhof, which is the terrorist group that they're talking about, the activists that they're talking about in the film that are causing the bombs and the kidnappings, and that have kidnapped, according to, is it Sarah by Mia Goth, have kidnapped a person who used to be an SS guard during the Nazi time, but then ran an employee or a treasury part of the bank. I forget which it was.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, now they kidnapped him and everything. And I remembered that article because we were reading it in class, and they said that Meinhof, at the end of her, she took her life, and the German government actually preserved her brain because they thought that it was so weird that a woman could be a terrorist or that a woman could be political. And I know that that's such a like weird fact, but I think that it plays so well into what Luca is trying to do with because he considered it a really feminist film, but I consider it like feminist plus. Like it's also showing the troubles with that, right? It's also showing how they are working against themselves and working against the sisters, right? They're covering up all of these horrible things that they do to Patricia and to Sarah, but they're saying, oh, but it is a sisterhood. So I think that's really fascinating.
Well, and this was one of the criticisms leveled at the film,
Uh-huh.
when it like, and I think still there's some detractors who would probably say this, the idea that like I think a lot of people saw this movie and read it as, oh, so women with power are to be feared. Not
Right.
it's not that you're not supposed to give power to women because this is what they do. Like, no,
Yeah.
they're just like, they're like anyone with power. Like, some people know how to use it and some people don't.
Yeah.
And in post-war Germany, that was a big thing to talk about, is what,
Yeah.
who is doing what with the power and why. And it adds so much that we get to see them struggle, and we get to see them have this ongoing argument over,
Hmm.
is Susie right for what they're doing? Will
Right.
she be able to undergo the transformation that they're going to put her through to
Yeah.
prepare her for this ritual? Which we'll get to the ritual in just a second, but
Oh, it's so good.
it's so good. You mentioned living in Germany, and hearing the German and all of that, which led me to remember that we have to talk about Dr. Klemperer,
Yes, we
who
do.
who is very crucially for the witches.
Uh-huh.
He is deemed the witness
The
for the
witness.
ritual,
Yes.
ritual that they're going to perform, because that's one of the old ways that they used to do things, is they would have a non-magical witness to their great and terrible acts that they were going to perform. And Dr. Klemperer is an old man, a Holocaust survivor, working as a psychotherapist in Germany, who finds out about this stuff because Patricia was a patient of his. And
Yes.
he has her notebooks, which he took to be the ravings of a delusional, mentally ill young woman, but which are actually laying out that there are these witches who run this dance studio and who are preparing girls for this awful ritual, and people are dying and she might die next. And he just kind of, he's such a tragic figure, because like his backstory is, like, he and his wife were separated during the Holocaust. His wife
Yeah,
died.
Anka.
His wife, he thinks his wife died. He doesn't actually
Mhm.
know what ultimately happened to her, where she was when she died, if she died, any of that. So he is just constantly in this state of, he's in a state of perpetual mourning because he has no closure.
Yeah.
And he sees investigating this, like, he couldn't fight the Nazis. He couldn't get back at the SS for what they were doing to him and,
Hmm.
and his loved ones, but maybe he can get to the bottom of whatever this is and help someone. And it's just another dimension in this big tapestry that this movie is. And I remember when it was coming out, this is very, very funny. Um, Tilda Swinton plays Madame Blanc. She's also under makeup as Mother Marcos, and she also is under makeup as Dr. Klemperer.
Oh yeah.
But when the movie came out, Dr. Klemperer was credited to Lutz Ebersdorf. And I remember Luca doing interviews and saying like, no, he's just this old German actor we found, and he was so great, and we loved working with him, and he was such a great discovery for us to have and everyone was watching the trailers going, that's Tilda Swinton in makeup.
Did they
Come on
know?
now.
Okay,
There
okay.
there was a strong suspicion. I remember when the trailers came out, there was a strong suspicion
Yeah,
based on the eyes in particular that like I think that's Tilda Swinton under makeup,
right. I
and
think you
he
can
was
tell in the teeth. You can tell in the
yeah.
teeth a little.
I still think it's a very convincing performance. Like
Me
it's not
too.
it does not ruin anything for me that that was Tilda Swinton. Um, in part because I think it's interesting that that the face of Madame Blanc is sort of shapeshifted behind the scenes
Yeah.
into these other permutations. But I love Dr. Klemperer, and if there was another movie where he was investigating some other supernatural mystery in Berlin, I would probably watch it.
Oh, you would put that you would put him through that. Poor guy. He's been through enough.
Wow, he's been through a lot. But he's such a great character and adds so much to this film.
I think
Um,
if we talk about him, we have to talk about Patricia and we have to talk about Sarah, who is played by Mia Goth, because as you were describing how he kind of sees this investigation of his as a way to not reconcile, but to like make up for the fact that he feels that he couldn't fight the Nazis and save Anka, his wife.
mhm.
I wonder what you think about the idea that maybe Patricia is like the emotional response of crying out and saying that these horrible things that happen in Germany were needed to be reckoned with because she's very emotional. She's like they think that she's mad, but she's like, no, this is happening. And if Sarah is like trying is basically like a manifestation of a more slow understanding that these things are happening, because whenever Dr. Klemper confronts her and talks to her about Patricia's disappearance, she's very adamantly against his investigation.
Yes, yes.
She's like, no, that's not what this is. All it is there, it's just a dance school, there's nothing else going on. Just like I could imagine people were trying to revise history, whether knowingly or not knowingly, about things that were coming out in Germany at that time, right? About what they had done. And then in the
Yeah.
end, she's like, oh no, this is actually is a thing. So I wonder if that's like two perspectives on history and how we confront it.
I didn't think about that, but that's an amazing point, and it reminded me a little bit of Jonathan Glazer's movie The Zone of Interest that came out a couple of years ago that is very much a head-on collision with those themes of like which Germans wanted to
Sure.
turn their head from the Holocaust and which Germans were freaking out, and how that realization dawned on the wider world, and how so many Germans in the decades following the war just had to like stare at this stuff
Yeah.
and contend with it, and contend, like, what does it mean to live in this country which as Americans right now living in this country,
Oh, yeah, of
we're
course.
all having to do our own version of like, holy shit, what are we?
Reckonings. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so yeah, that's an amazing point. This is completely unrelated to that point, but because we're talking about Patricia and Sarah, and obviously there's also Olga, who
Oh, yes, Olga. Hmm.
Olga is much more she's she's not like trying to dig into the conspiracy of it at all. She's just she's cannon fodder basically for what for she serves as a test of Susie's potential
Susie, yeah.
power. Um and that was that scene where Olga is in a mirrored dance studio by
Yeah.
herself and is being thrown around as Susie dances above her is incredible, and it
Whew.
also introduces one of my favorite pieces of design work in any horror film of the 21st century, which are the hooks that the witches carry.
I love the hooks.
The
Oh, they're
hooks are
so good.
they're so cool, and I had forgotten about them. Somehow I had forgotten about them, and then rewatching it last night, I there's that moment of like the Olga is half dead on the floor and the women come out and they have these and they're just hooks. Like if you've never
I
seen this
know.
movie, you hear hooks and you think like, oh, so like a hook on a pole or on
Yeah.
a stick no, they are just a giant curved metal blade
Yeah.
that they use to slip into the flesh of these girls and drag them away.
They're very
And it
shiny.
is they're very shiny, they're very pretty, and they're just so devastating. I love those things so much.
There's lore with that too, because at the end, when Dr. Kempler is like, I'm gonna throw this thing away after he receives it from Zara, who steals it, the witches attack him and they're basically like, I forgot what they say, but they're like, this is older than like all of us. This is like extremely special and unique, and you threw it into the putrid river or
Yes.
whatever. And so we're just like, I'm like, oh my God, I want to read like a book about like the hooks by themselves. Like I want to know everything that's in that room that they hide, like all the artifacts.
Yeah, that room is incredible. And I guess this is the part where we talk about the ritual and the meaning behind the ritual. So, um, in in the third act, in the climactic moments of the film, there is a ritual that they've been building towards for the whole movie, and Klimperer is dragged there and stripped naked and forced to watch this thing. And the idea is that Susie has sort of the innate power and allure to be a new youthful vessel for Marcos, the leader of this coven. So they're gonna pull Susie into this ritual. They're gonna use the girls that they've captured, Olga, Sarah, and Patricia, as a sacrifice to activate this thing, and they're gonna pull Marcos's spirit into Susie, and Susie has to be willing to completely empty herself and give, which is echoes something that Blanc said earlier, which was if to be a good dancer, to perform someone else's dance, you have to be a vessel for
Right.
their intention. You can't interpret it your own way. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be a vessel for what they're giving you. And Marcos is this monstrous old crone wearing sunglasses, which is amazing. Sort of looks
Diva.
like the Butterball Cenobite from Hellraiser a little bit with the glasses.
Yeah, a little
Um,
bit.
and she is there, and she is so ready. She is like, "Oh, this hot young thing is coming in.
Right.
She's gonna be my new body. I'm gonna live forever. This is awesome." And then Susie reveals that she's not there to be a vessel for Marcos, that she is actually Mother Suspiriorum, who is the witch that all of these witches have pledged their loyalty to.
Yeah.
And she's here to clean house. And literally starts popping the heads of all of the women who
Like
voted
balloons.
to stay with Mark, like blood-filled balloons. They just explode. Um, and you can look at this reveal, and I'm curious what your interpretation of this reveal is, because you can look at it very much as this was all Blanc's plan. She had planned this from the beginning in an effort to try and seize power, and she cultivated Susie for this. Or you can look at it as Susie was waiting for this all along. Where do you fall on that?
I do not, I think Blanc has an impression of Susie's powers and has suspicions. The first time that that Susie auditions, Blanc appears in the Hall of Mirrors, and they have a connection. Everything that they're acting through their eyes it's so emotive, and it gives us a look into their weird innate connection, but they never really say things outright like, this is the plan, I'm the vessel, this is what's going to happen. I see Blanc as hesitant. I see her as knowing that this thing is going to happen, that it has to happen, but that there will be bloodshed. The way that I see it is it's a witch revolution. There are people hoping for a change. Blanc doesn't want Marcos anymore, right? There are a lot of the witches who know that she's holding on to power and she's old and she's not representing them anymore. Does that sound familiar to you? But things have to happen in order for that phase to end, and it's going to be violent, it's going to be bloody, and it's going to be horrific. So I see Susie as somebody who is just she knows what's going to happen. She knows that there are terrible things that have to happen for Marcos's reign to end. And I think there's a scene where they're sitting across from each other after the dance, after Volk, and Susie says, "Why does everyone think the worst has yet to happen?" or something like that. And then it does. That's my take on it anyway, but I'm very curious to hear yours.
No, I think that's pretty close to mine because there is that wonderful moment, and this is something we haven't necessarily talked about much before. I mean, you talked about the soundtrack, but the sound design
Mhm.
in this film is very important, and it incorporates there's a very famous like you know this, but I'm talking to the listeners in Suspiria from 77. There's a very famous scene where all the girls they have a bug infestation in the dance school, so all the girls have to sleep together in one big room while they clean out the bugs in the dorms. And Mother Marcos comes in the room in the middle of the night, and you hear her wheezing.
Yes.
And Luca and I'm gonna look this up and make sure I get his name right. David Kajanich, I think that's how you pronounce your name, David. I'm sorry if I butchered it. Who wrote
Sorry,
the
David.
who wrote the screenplay for this Suspiria? They latch on to that idea of breathing and how
Mm,
important it is. Um, very early on, like you hear Susie's mother wheezing
yeah.
the way that Marcos wheezes in the original film, and then you hear Marcos wheeze later in this film. But you hear because so often these girls are dancing not to music but to a metronome or to a
Yeah.
living metronome. One of their instructors is counting time for them, and breath is so important, and they're always breathing, and they're always like giving these almost animalistic growly intakes of breath as they
Yeah.
exert themselves. And that is how it is like presented, is like the moment Susie starts breathing through her dance, Blanc hears it from another room or
That's
senses it from
right.
another room
Yeah.
and sort of almost floats in to this other studio to see who this new young dancer is. So yeah, Blanc definitely senses something, and I love that over the course of the film, Susie just starts to pick up knowledge about what's going on around her
Mhm.
without necessarily like realizing what she's picked up just yet. And she just sort of slowly gets wiser to the point that when they dance Volk, when they're doing the recital, there that is the moment that the witches have decided to descend on Sarah. And without, I don't even know if she knows what she's doing, but Susie literally pulls Sarah, like summons her into the dance because she feels like she needs her there to complete the dance,
Mhm.
and doesn't realize that she's like forcefully making Sarah do this against her will and dance until she literally collapses screaming. Um, so yeah, I think our perspectives align. I think that the power was there, and that Susie felt herself transforming, and I think embraced her transformation. For it is a revolution. It is a
Yeah.
violent overthrow of an antiquated regime. Um, God, I love it. And I was
It's so
reminded,
good.
yeah, it's so good. I was reminded today when I went and looked up the film and was reading a little bit about it that this was actually meant to be the first part of a
I
larger story.
know.
And this movie did not make money at the box office, didn't do very well. So they never got
Mhm.
to make whatever Suspiria Part 2 would have been. but I hope that Luca one day like puts it out as a book or something so we can
I
like
know.
see
Or
what they
gives
would
us the
play with.
scripts. Like, just give us the scripts.
Yeah, it would be so amazing to read at least what the plan was, because this movie ends in such, and there's even like a time jump at the very end. There's like a
Hmm.
scene where you see like in the present day. And this is the other thing, is like the open question at the end of the film is, okay, Susie has clearly seized power.
Yeah,
How will she use it? And
right.
we know that there's some benevolence and gentleness in her, because the three girls, one of whom was her close friend who suffered under these witches, she grants them a gentle, she just sort of releases them into death rather than making them suffer
Yeah.
anymore. And then she goes to Klemperer, which is an
I love
amazing
that scene.
scene, and she gifts him the knowledge of what happened to his wife. She tells him, this is what happened to her. Now you know. Now you can try to make peace with that. So you're led to believe that Susie will be a benevolent ruler, but
Yeah.
if you're an immortal witch who can do anything, what will power do to you? Like, how do you feel about where this movie ends and where it leaves off, and what do you think? What do you hope would come next?
I think that there are two endings, right? It's the ritual ending, which they could have ended it there.
They
But
could
I
have,
think
yeah.
it's so great that we went back to Dr. Kempler and we hear Susie apologize for her daughters. She says, I apologize for what my daughters did to you. So even though she just exploded everybody's head, she's also taking accountability for them, which I think is very interesting. Like, she is this past and present and future figure, right? And she's like, I'm sorry for what my daughters did to you. It wasn't right. There's a scene where the witches are pulling him in to be a witness, and they say something like, you didn't believe your wife when she said that the Nazis were coming. And because of that, basically, like, guilting him into thinking that his wife's death or disappearance are his fault. And you know that that's something that he has so much guilt over. And then they add on Patricia and they say, you don't believe women, right? When they come to you. And then we fast forward to when he's sitting in his bed and Susie is saying, I forgive you of all of their lives. It's not your fault, essentially. The crimes fall to other people, but not to you, which I think is so beautiful because he's been living, he's tortured, like you said, because he doesn't know. And when they manifest or they make this illusion of his wife Anka to lead him to the dance studio, it's so cruel
Yeah.
because that's not his wife, right? And when finally she says the story of Anka and that she died in a concentration camp, but that she was not alone, I think that that gives him forgiveness, but it also is something that indicates to me that she is very nuanced about the history of the men and what they've done and the witches, and who knows where that will lead, right? But I see her as so interesting as a witch figure because she, to me, the whole, all of the threads come together, and they, in Susie there is this vision for the future. It's hopeful. It's hopeful that the witches are going to continue in a different way and maybe they will have more agency. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they could have ended this with the ritual, and it's such a, the way that they shot that and the way they bathed that whole room in red light is so dramatic and striking, and it could have just cut out there. But Luca, I think when he does horror, he has this very humanist streak in him
Yeah.
that, I mean, it's obviously all through Bones and All, that is a very human emotional horror movie. But it's in Suspiria too. It's sometimes buried under a lot of like pageantry and ritual and things like that, but he does bring it out, and I like the way that he closes this. um before we start to wrap up, I did want to ask you about what are your feelings about the Argento Suspiria? Are you a fan?
I am a fan. I saw it in college and then I revisited it after watching Suspiria. But I think for me the emotional connections of Suspiria 2018 and the color scheme, because we didn't really talk about that, it's completely different
Oh
than
yeah.
Argento's, because Argento's is red and it's psychedelic and it's in your face and there's purples, and Suspiria 2018 is drained of all of that. It's gray and beige, and there are red elements, but they're very subdued. I really am a fan of Argento's film, but personally, the movie that I revisit is the 2018 Suspiria. It has so much. There's so many things to get from each viewing that I find fulfill me a bit more than Argento's. Right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not Argento's most. It's one of his most beautiful films. I wouldn't say it's his most complex.
right? Exactly.
Like Deep Red and Tenebrae and films like that, I think get much more. And it's also like sort of striking to remember that was like his fifth or sixth movie. Like he was not
Mm.
very far into
Mhm.
his directorial career when he made Suspiria, and I love it, but it's definitely not the like web of complexities that this movie is. And
Right.
I do love the color palette of this. Like I know that a lot of times in talking about movies right now, we talk about like, isn't it great to see color in a movie? Isn't it great to when a movie looks like the world and has colors in it? But the muted color palette does so much for this version of the story because Argento very much saw his as this is Snow White. This is a dark
Right.
fairy tale. So I'm gonna do it in Technicolor and make it really pop because it's meant to remind you of a fairy tale. And Luca's is so much more like this is about magic clawing its way back from the brink in a dark and violent
Mhm.
time for humanity. And I'm gonna show you that. I'm gonna show you the like you said, the rain and the dark subway and the the German punks hanging out drinking in the corner at the
Yeah.
train station and all that stuff. So yeah, I love the color palette too. Um, so I want to ask a little bit, get a little more direct in talking about how this film has influenced you creatively. I
Sure.
can definitely reading Feast of Putrid Delights. I can definitely see some of Susie in Antonia, and there is a lot of. We didn't really talk about this when we were talking about your book, but um, there's a lot of yearning in that book
Mhm.
because Antonia is on a little bit of a one-sided romance that never quite panned out. Like there's a road not taken in her life
Mhm.
that she still clings to and thinks about a lot, and it manifests metaphorically in what she goes through. And Susie doesn't really have a road not taken necessarily because she is living out her dream of going to the dance studio, but she has that yearning. She has a piece of her that is not there that she is trying to find to fill this hole. So, how much do you just mentioned you write to the soundtrack, but how much do you think about this film in relation to your own work?
Mhm. I think first and foremost, as a creative person, I think about this film a lot because Susie goes in with no training and she becomes this prodigy, this exceptional dancer, but she also has to learn a lot from the Madame Blanc and all of the other instructors. So she has a lot of confidence and she doesn't necessarily struggle with imposter syndrome herself, but there is a real creative core to the film because it is dance, it is the creative arts. And the way that it talks about arts as a way to elevate humanity and to be in touch with not just the witch spirit but the human spirit is something that I think about quite frequently. And in Antonia's case in Feast, she does have a lot of imposter syndrome, and she always wonders if there is not this reason why she's not a prodigy, why she doesn't have this almighty given power that just descends on her. And I think a lot of creative people struggle with that. The way that I look at it is they're both perspectives on how creativity is undeniable in humanity. I think that you can be creative with spoon making, with car mechanics, with teaching, with anything, right? I think that that's just part of like what it means to be human. It doesn't have to be visual arts or writing or music or anything like that. But there's always this conversation that you have with yourself of like negotiating what you think is your own talent and how far you can go and how far the world wants to see it. That is so much at the core of Feast, and it's something that I take away from movies like Suspiria or Black Swan or I can't think of others right now, but basically the core of creativity as a way to bring out our own horrors with what we perceive of ourselves. So I think about Suspiria probably every week.
Yeah.
And it never leaves you. It's something that I always look at as a way to incorporate not just the core of a plot, but also the world around us.
I have to mention, because when you were talking about the way that the movie looks at art and creativity, I have to mention my favorite line from the film, which is there's a moment where Susie, like Madame Blanc, is trying to teach Susie how to jump properly. And
Right.
she says, forget about beauty. We have to break the nose of everything beautiful in this world.
Yes.
And that is such a metal ass horror movie
It's
line.
so epic. Yeah.
It's amazing, and I love it. And I think about it. I'm gonna be thinking about it for weeks now that I just saw the movie again, because it's just such a beautiful
Right on.
way of looking at creativity, and like the perfect is the enemy of good and things like that, which is
But
something I
also,
ascribe. But
oh, sorry,
also,
but also Susie at the end is like, now dance is beautiful. It's beautiful. So it's kind of like this ebb and flow of sometimes art is just going to be uncomfortable to look at, and sometimes it will be beautiful, and sometimes it will be like a grotesque mix of both those things.
yes,
Because she loves Madame Blanc and she reveres her, and then at the same time she's like, well, we don't have to break the nose. Like I want it to be beautiful.
yes.
Like it'll be different. But I forgot to mention one of my favorite scenes in Suspiria is actually the aftermath of the ritual, because I don't know there's many movies that do this where they're actually cleaning up all the blood and they're scrubbing it, and I'm just like, I love that. It's
I
like the
love, yeah,
kitchen of the movie, right?
yeah.
Like
They have to, like, that's the amazing thing too, is like we were talking earlier about it's a coven of witches that are supposed to have tremendous influence over the world, but also it's a dance studio, and they have to like
mop it
change
up.
the change the sheets and
Yes.
sweep the floors and clean the mirrors. And so yeah, at the end of your gigantic blood ritual where you exploded 20 heads, you still have to clean up and go about your business, because there's dancing to do. We got to get back to work. I love it.
Maybe that's what it says about art, right? Like it could be magical, but then you gotta clean up. You
This is
gotta
true.
dip your easels in soap and water and take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Everybody out there, you can't be creative and a mess at the same time. Well, you can, but you got to take care of yourself after.
Yeah.
Always remember that. Stay hydrated, everybody. It's summer. Valentina, it has been lovely talking to you. Before we let you go, will you let people know where they can find you online, and what what you have coming up, what you have to promote? I think we've already talked about it, but
Yeah, let's give the too long didn't read version. I am on Substack and Twitch at Styx Teeth, which is like the river Styx, and I am live every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If you want to come write and you want to say hello, I'm always happy to have more people to our little group of weirdos. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Matthew. Also, yes, please check out the anthology in the Eyes of the Hungry, edited with Matthew Tishy. It is out now. I have a novel that I'm working on, and hopefully we can talk about that in the future, and a short story collection coming out in the future that I can't reveal yet, but it's all really exciting stuff. So I hope to be back talking with you.
Absolutely. We hope to have you back. Valentina, thank you so much. It's been so much fun.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks once again to Valentina Rojas for being on the show. A Feast of Putrid Delights is available now from Ghoulish Books. Go pick that up. Support a rad indie author and a rad indie press. And go find Valentina on socials. Hit up her Twitch streams. Hit her up online. See what she's got going on. And if you want to see everything that we've got going on, the best way to do that is to follow us on Blue Sky. We are at scareshapedus.bsky.social. That's where you will find new guest announcements, new episodes, giveaways. Whenever we do giveaways, they're pretty much always on Blue Sky, so you want to be over there following us to get some free books, hopefully. And pretty much anything else that's going on here at Scares That Shaped Us HQ, you're going to find out about it through the Blue Sky page. We are also on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. It's just the Scares That Shaped Us. You can find us there. I really need to get the Instagram cracking, and maybe I'll do that here in the coming weeks. But for now, Blue Sky, Facebook, and we are the Scares That Shaped Us on YouTube. If you prefer to listen to your podcast that way, head over there, hit those like and subscribe buttons. We appreciate the support. And if you like the show, please tell your friends, share us on social media, head over to the podcasting app of your choice and give us a 5-star review over there. That helps us get featured, which helps us bring in more people, which will help us keep doing the cool things that we do. That's it for this week. We will be back next week, June 25th, with a brand new episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I'm Matthew Jackson, and this is The Scares That Shaped Us.